So this is a little different than the videos I would normally make. Granted, I don't do much video making anymore as is, because it's pretty time consuming, and that's time I could spend on programming, working on my games in general, so I'd much rather be doing that. However, this is a topic that I've been mulling about for a few weeks now, and given some recent tweets that came out, I think it has to be made and has to be kind of talked about a bit. Now, what started this all was some tweets about a game from Obsidian that's coming out called Avowed, where it had shown pronouns in a character sheet, and people began to jump on the game about that. Then this was followed up by some pictures of an extremely masculine female character, almost to an absurd and comical level, which kind of fueled the fires further. Stepping back and looking at it kind of logically, you could tell that this probably was a character creation, or something was wrong with the game's loading model because it was so absurd looking. But, people were jumping on the game anyways because of that. It was spiraling out of control. However, unfortunately, the devs decided to double down, and instead of not saying anything at all, they made some really, really awful comments about people's immutable traits and wanting to hire people specifically based on other traits instead. And that soured my mood on the game quite a bit. Avowed was something I was really optimistic for at the start because I had been a long term Obsidian fan. It was something I was hoping would be in the vein of an older Elder Scrolls game that I'd be able to enjoy, because Skyrim was okay, but it wasn't really what I was looking for out of a game like that. And then I saw the trailer for it with combat and actual action in the game, and I realized it really wasn't going to be that kind of game, which was disappointing, but I thought to myself maybe it would be something like Heroes of Might and Magic Dark Messiah, which I quite enjoyed in the past and would like to see more games like that. So I had still some hope, some optimism for the game when it came out. But after the comments made by the developers, I've kind of lost all interest in the game. I don't want to give money to people who think like that and act like that. It's just terrible mindsets, and I want nothing to do with that. So this video is going to go over a few important topics kind of related to these events and more that have spun up in the weeks since. First and foremost, I kind of want to talk about developers and game companies that are spitting in the faces of their long-term fans. This is something I've noticed for a few years now, and it's quite concerning. There are a variety of ways they do it. I think one of the most blatant ones I remember seeing was from Volition with the new Saints Row, where fans were concerned with the direction of the game they were going, and these were a lot of long-term fans that had been there since like Saints Row 1, Saints Row 2, that were like, this doesn't feel like a Saints game. This is very bizarre. And the company had told them on social media that, yeah, this game isn't for you. And I couldn't understand at the time why you would do that. What what compels you to spit in the face of people that buy your games and have been with you through hell and high water? Because these are the people that would catch you when you fall, when you stumble. They'll buy your product. They'll continue to support you. They're going to keep you alive. They had just alienated them. And we're seeing that again here with Obsidian. Obsidian isn't a super large AAA company. They're kind of a middle of the road AA company that has a very devoted following. They've made some great games throughout the decades. A lot of interesting and old games that I kind of enjoyed. They've also stumbled now and then, and I think because they had fans when they did stumble, they're able to keep going. But when you spit in those people's faces and you stumble again, why would they stick around for you? Why would they do that? They've been giving you their money, and then you just treat them like shit. You literally didn't have to say anything at all, but you did. And it was the worst thing you could have said. And now you expect them to give you money after telling them you hate them because of immutable traits of how they were born. Just terrible things to say. And there hasn't been any repercussion from the company as far as I can tell about this. I guess they're okay with racism as long as it's for the right group of people, or sexism as long as it's towards the right sex. So I guess I'll just be avoiding Microsoft games in the future in general if that's their outlook and that's their mentality towards people. To add to this, it got me thinking about a lot of these companies that have been around for a while. The Bethesdas, the BioWares, the Blizzards. These were all the companies as a kid that I really looked up to and that I wanted to work at in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of those companies, I think they're only there really in name. All the people who worked on these games, the majority of them are gone. And I think I had seen a tweet here that kind of discusses how Obsidian really isn't the Obsidian that I enjoyed from Pillars of Eternity or games even before that I had mentioned, because all those people are gone. It's just in name only. And he had called it the Ship of Theseus, where it's staffed by people who had nothing to do with the legacy that they built up, but they still have to maintain that legacy, even though they have no idea how it operates or how it works. And I think this applies to a lot of the companies, not just Obsidian. This applies to Bethesda, it applies to BioWare, it applies to Blizzard, it applies to probably a hell of a lot more studios too. All those greats have moved on. It's just name only, and the people running it don't know what made them great. You can see that with like Diablo 4, as far as I think. Sure, it's an ARPG and it's got elements, but it's stagnant. It doesn't have the soul of Diablo 2. Hell, it barely has the soul of Diablo 3 in it. I didn't like Diablo 3 that much. Even Reapers of Souls, when it fixed a lot of the issues, still had a ton of issues wrong with it. These companies, they're really not putting out what they used to put out as far as content for me, which is probably why I don't really bother buying their stuff anymore now that I think about it. I don't even know if I'm going to get the next collector's edition for Elder Scrolls. I don't even think I'm going to pre-order the next Elder Scrolls when they announce Elder Scrolls 6. I just don't have the faith it's going to be good. I didn't think Skyrim was that good. I thought it was as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle. A lot of what made that game great, being able to customize and break characters, has been fading more and more with every iteration of it. And I don't know what they're going to do with the next one, but if it looks like Starfield, boy, I'm not going to bother with that. I remember them talking about Starfield and mentioning that they were going to kind of go back to the Daggerfall roots with like Generation of the World, but it was abysmal. When I saw the combat trailer for Starfield, I knew the game was dead to me. The second he fired the gun at a guy and it said plus 5 XP on the screen, all the wind in my sails left my body. I just I said this is shit because they're using the frickin' Fallout system again. Bethesda had built up this wonderful skill-based system with the Elder Scrolls game where you level up by using weapons. Your proficiency with weapons increases. And some foolish thought of me thought they would do something with Starfield that would be like Deus Ex, where your aim with a pistol would be based on your skill. So you're not going to be a great shot at the start. You're not going to be able to aim for headshots as easily. You're not going to be able to be a trigger shot until you get better at these things. But nope, they threw this great system that had completely in the trash and just made it plus 5 XP for killing a guy. I was done at that point. Like, Fallout 76 I didn't bother with because it looked like it was MTX slop. I had seen some people playing the game. It was a Bethesda mess, but online. I don't know. The Ship of Theseus really does hold true in this situation. And unfortunately, the companies seem like they're treating us like crap too, so there really isn't any reason to give them money anymore. Man, it's not all gloom and doom though. There are new companies that are coming out, and I'll talk about a few of these games at the end. I hope you check them out because I think they're worth looking into. These are people that I'm optimistic for that'll give us fun and challenging games that don't insult your intelligence, they don't insult the customer base, and they're just genuine fun. So, end of the video, take a look at this. The final part that I did want to get into was some concerns I've noticed in the past few months on social media. And I think that a tweet by Pirate Nation in the past few days really kind of brought out a lot of things that were hiding under the rocks. And it was what I was afraid of is starting to come to pass again. So this tweet by Dread Roberts here kind of goes over the topic in response to Pirate Nation asking if a scantily clad woman in game is what gamers want. And the post, I think it speaks for itself. It's kind of the horseshoe theory when it comes to politics and positions. The horseshoe theory is the further away the left gets from the right, they kind of loop back around towards each other where they both have the same extreme views, but for different reasons. And the worst part about this group tends to be that they're not content to just hold these beliefs to themselves and live that way. They want to force them on everyone else. They believe that they are morally just, or they believe that they know what's best for everyone, and everyone should do as they want. And you can kind of see that in his writing on the post here. I'll kind of go over a little bit of it here. Saying anyone with a modicum of decency immediately attacks the character of anyone that likes anything that's attractive or beauty because they dislike that for some reason or another. They ask how it's making gaming better. Well, it makes games better by not having censorship. It lets the devs make attractive characters if they want. It lets devs make ugly characters if they want. But it's ultimately decided by the market. It's none of your goddamn business. That's how it makes it better. If you don't like it, don't buy it. They claim about the morals of future generations. Video games aren't about the morals of future generations. Video games are about having fun in the present, getting away from all this crap. If you want morals for future generations, that's being anti-censorship. Teaching future generations that just because you don't like something doesn't mean you should get rid of it. As long as no one is being hurt from it, as long as, it's extreme stuff that's kept in private, it's okay for it to exist. It's not something you have to partake in. It's not something you have to look at. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Just look away. Just have to look away. I don't understand how someone thinking an attractive woman in skimpy clothing is your problem. Just look away from the screen. Don't pay money for it. Then they ask, where do we draw the line? And therein, I think, is the big problem. These people want line. And there's two ways to look at the line. One, when it comes to censorship, there shouldn't be a line as long as it's not active calls for violence or as involving non-consenting people. That's about it. And the other would be that obviously it's the market. The market determines where the line is. People who like something will buy it. People who don't like it won't buy it. So if you want to make a game like Dustborn, for example, you better budget appropriately for all 96 people that'll buy it. If you want to make a game like Baldur's Gate 3, you would budget for the millions of people that will buy it. You can still make ugly characters. You can still make bizarre characters. You can still do your weird little subculture stupid ideas, no matter how stupid they may be. You just have to temper your expectations for it, and that's the market. Ultimately, they close it out by saying we need real adults, people who have their priorities straight and their arousal in check. Real adults know how to mind their own business as long as no one else is being hurt from it. I'm reminded all too often of a very old episode from another husk of a thing called The Simpsons, where Marge was extremely upset that Bart was watching some violent cartoons, and instead of, just forbidding her kids from watching it, she decided to rally a bunch of people, talk about think of the children, oh this and that, and how it's going to rot them all away. So she got an army up, and they censored the cartoon. They completely ruined it. They banned all freedom of expression from it. And then, that group that she had rallied came the next 3 days, and they were upset about something new. They were upset about Michelangelo's David. They thought seeing his genitalia on the statue was too absurd, too extreme. It needed to be banned. Now, Marge found this absurd because Michelangelo's David is a work of art. And she was against it, but she had created a monster that didn't see it as a work of art. To them, Michelangelo's David was arousing. It was the statue of a naked man. Clearly, we can't have that. I would think to most people, you don't get aroused when you look at Michelangelo's David. But to a few people, you do. And they think that way is for everyone else. And that's the problem with people who believe they have moral superiority and they know the best way to live. They don't know how other people live. They don't know how other people think. And when you try to enforce that on other people, this is what you end up with. As the pendulum continues to swing more towards the right, we're going to see a lot more people acting like this that start championing anti-censorship because they know best. And it's an extremely frustrating thing. I'd like to believe it's something we can stop, that we can stop the pendulum swinging all the way to the right. Maybe we can, but we're all going to have to work really hard at it. But I also know it's a very hard to do battle because when the pendulum swings, there are people on the other side that feel they have been wronged when the other group is in power. And it's very hard to let go of that sense that you've been wrong. And then the cycle will just continue where Group A is just doing what Group B had been doing to them before. It feels a little corny to say, but it reminds me of that overused Nietzsche quote about beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. For when you gaze long into the abyss gazes back at you, which I take to mean that you lose sight of why you started fighting against what you were fighting against. You become so caught up in it that that innocent you that just had some thoughts and opinions or things you enjoyed that suddenly were ruined has become bittered and jaded, and you now want to lash out and take revenge, including on those who did nothing against you. We need to stop. We need to let it go. We need to prevent doing what was done to us. Otherwise, people are going to just do it again. And I'd like to hope that's something we can do, but I don't think it is. Thanks again for listening to me vent about my thoughts and concerns on this. This is something I'm not an expert at really putting forth. I'm sure you can tell from the quality of it, but it's something I had to get out there, and I'd rather honestly be working on things than doing this. Hopefully, I won't have to make something like this again, but we'll see how it goes. Now, to paraphrase or steal what I heard from Red Letter Media once, it's time for the adults to put their toys away. To add to that, though, I'd like to say I think it's time for the adults to make new toys for new kids and old kids alike. And there are a lot of new studios I think are worthy of your time and investment in looking at those, and I am going to list a few of the many worth checking out. Hopefully, one day soon I'll be able to join them. Thank you all again. Have a nice day.